Hi, fourth graders. Thanks for joining us for math today. Yesterday, we made a frequency table, and then with our frequency table, we turned it into a line plot. So here is the table that we created, and here is the line plot that we created. And using these, we are going to be answering a few questions about these. So if you drew these out yesterday, you can use your own examples, or I will make sure that you can see both of them here. So using these, we're going to answer these next 5 questions. So the first question is, how many more people scored an 89% on the test than a 90%? And I'm going to let you guys think about the answers to all of these questions. I will read them all. And then in just a little bit, I will put up the answer key. If you need to pause this video at any time, I would choose to do that right now and read the questions yourself and see if you can answer any of them before looking at the answer key. But I will continue reading them so you can come back and listen if you need help. Number 2, how many students must have taken the science test? Number 3, how many students scored a 90% or above on the test? Number 4, how many students scored an even number on the test? And number 5, what's the difference between the highest and lowest percent on the test? So take a second, answer those questions. I would listen to the question, pause afterwards, and use either the line plot or the frequency table to answer those questions. And now let's look at the answers. I'm going to go ahead and leave this line plot here so we can see this. Number 1, how many more people scored an 89% than a 90%? Well, I can see that the 89%, there are 6 people, and then 3 people scored a 90. So 6 minus 3 equals 3, so 3 more people scored an 89%. Number 2, how many students must have taken the science test? This is always a tricky one when it comes to line plots. So these are the percentages, which means that all of these X's must have been students. If we look back here on the frequency table, you can also look at these numbers, which would be the numbers of the students in the class. I chose to look at the line plot, and I added up my 88 friends, my friends who got 89. So you can see those numbers here, 4 plus 6 plus 3 plus 1. And in my head, I added these in a strategic way. I know that 6 and 4 is 10, plus 3 and 1 is 4, so there's 14, 16, 18. You can count it however you like, but when I added all of them up, I know that I must have had 28 kids that took the test. Number 3, how many students scored a 90% or above on the test? This one's always a tricky one too, because sometimes we forget that it says 90 or above, which means I still need to include the 90%. So in my head, I just took out these scores because they were below the 90%, and I added up all the friends who got 90 or above. You can see that all laid out here of how many scored each. 3 scored 90, 1 scored 91. And if I add up all of these friends who scored those scores, it's 18 people in the class who scored 90 or above. Number 4, how many students scored an even number on the test? I know that even numbers have an even number in the ones place, so that would be 88 and 90, 92, but unfortunately no one got that, 94, 96, which no one else had, and 98. So you can see here are my even scores. 4 kids had 88, 3 had 90, 2 had 94, and 3 had 98. If I add up all those students, then it looks like 12 of them scored an even number on the test. Lastly, what's the difference between the highest and lowest percent scored on the test? Sometimes my kids get this confused with the 89% had the most kids, but it's with percentages. It's the lowest and the highest percent. So the highest score that anyone got in the class, if we look back at our line plot, was 98. That was the greatest score. The lowest score that anyone got on the test was an 88. So if you're asking me the difference between the highest percent and the lowest percent, which is called the range of the data, then I would take 98 minus 88, which has a difference of 10%. So there's a 10% difference between the highest and the lowest scores. Thank you for working with us today. And thank you for working with line plots and frequency tables. You can find your own stuff on the internet and see if you can put your own data. You could ask your friends about what cookies they like or what their favorite activity is to do, and make your own line plot and your own frequency tables and answer some questions. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon.